Okay, well, welcome back to our Spirit and the Movies series in the Interfaith Exploration session, summer of 2022. So excited to be back here with you all, along with Jay McDaniel and Lois Smythe. As I have said before in the early sessions of this class, that on any given weekend in our culture, more people are watching movies than attending a worship service. So, film and its impact on our culture is phenomenal nowadays, and I'm very excited and happy that we are doing this series. In today's session, we have two movies, and I'm going to hand it over to my friends, Jay and Louis, to do them. One of them is Contact, picked by Louis Smythe, and the other is How to Cook Your Life. I'm assuming we're starting with Contact. Is that right, Louis?
We were actually going to start with how to cook your life, if that's okay.
Is that okay with you, Jay? Okay, so let's start with then How to Cook Your Life, and we'll start with the trailer and then we'll go to a clip.
All right.
So, I think I would like to start my film, How to Cook Your Life, with a clip from it. And what you're going to see is, this is Zen Buddhism. And in the Zen tradition, immersion in this world and the sensory dimensions thereof is a good thing. And so to be attentive to the here and the now, while you cook, while you speak, while you listen, while you walk, to be fully planted in the present. That's very important in Zen. And you may remember that in the spiritual alphabet, A is for attention. And attention is a lot like mindfulness. When we speak of mindfulness today, it's being relaxed and alert and attentive to what is happening as it's happening. So a lot of people meditate trying to become more mindful. I do it every day myself. I'm not good at it. And I've been doing it a long time, and I'm still not any good. But I need to stop. I need to stop. And so I appreciate that. But some people find meditation very difficult. And there's an old saying, if you can't meditate, cook. Because when you really cook, when you're really present in the act of cooking, you are present. And it can be an occasion to gain release from the preoccupations, the obsessions, and just be with the food that you're preparing. The smells, the touch, the whole act of preparing. So there are retreats that combine cooking and meditating. And this film is about a retreat by a Zen teacher whose name I always forget. But it's a really nice name if you can ever get it. But I'm going to show you a clip of him at a retreat. I think it's in Germany, and it's the tail end of the retreat. And he's talking about sincerity. Now, you've gotten a lot in this. If you watch this, you'll get a lot besides sincerity. There's a lot of themes, but I thought I'd show you the last one just to get a bit of the flavor of it. So go ahead, Louis, and then we'll talk.
All right, excellent. And Jay, if this is not the place that you wanted me to clip for you, go ahead and shout it out and we can find the right spot.
All right, I will.
All right.
Let's stop for just a moment. This is not the teacher whom you'll see in a second. This is his teacher. And this was a famous Zen teacher named Shunryu Suzuki, who came to San Francisco from Japan and nourished a lot of people in the Zen tradition. So this is a little... Okay, Louis, okay, that's good.
I wasn't sure when you wanted to stop, if you wanted to stop.
I think it was just a couple of minutes before. Let's see that last part.
Of course, yeah. So sorry. Let's keep going.
So there were, if you watch the movie, and you sure don't need to, but if you do, many themes will stand out. And one is the simple idea that cooking is a form of meditation. Another theme that will stand out is the idea that food is the Buddha. And there's a famous line from a 13th century writer named Dogen in Japan. And he says, handle even a single leaf of a green in such a way that it manifests the body of the Buddha. This in turn allows the Buddha to manifest in the leaf. And this is the idea that the sacred is not different from the ordinary world. The Buddha is not far away. The Buddha is not a god. The Buddha is the living presence of something beautiful, something sacred in ordinary life. And so when you cook, when you wash the carrot, wash the greens, you can think of it as letting the Buddha be the Buddha. Letting the Buddha mind be the Buddha mind, shining forth through the physicality of this very world. The word Buddha literally means to wake up. So the man who was the Buddha, his name was Gautama. They called him Gautama the Buddha. That did not mean Gautama the god. It meant Gautama, the one who was awake. And our purpose in life, so Buddhists believe, is also to become awake. To become awake is not to become perfect. It's not to become physically perfect. It's not to look like Mademoiselle Magazine. It's not to have some pictorial image in your mind. I'm supposed to look like that. And then I will be okay. It's not even to become morally perfect. We make mistakes. We're finite. We're human. We have lines on our face. We grow old. That's the Buddha too. And so there's a notion in this kind of Buddhism that it's the notion of sincerity. And there's the idea that rocks are sincere because they are themselves. Water is sincere because it is itself. And you can be sincere because you are yourself. And that sincerity in you, that beauty in you, is not comparable. So often when we think of ourselves, how am I? We compare ourselves to somebody else. How am I compared to them? Am I okay? Well, as compared to them. And so Buddhism, this kind of Buddhism is an invitation to free ourselves of comparisons and accept the finite frailty and beauty of being human in this body, whatever it is. And so where is God in all of this? Well, God is not a Buddhist word. Buddhism did not emerge historically with the idea of a creator God. That was a Western Abrahamic idea of a single creator that put things in motion. That's a Jewish, Christian, and Muslim idea. but it's not a Buddhist idea. There were gods and goddesses, but they weren't creators. They didn't create out of nothing. They weren't lawgivers. They weren't lawgivers. There's no Torah, no Quran, no New Testament. But there was the image of something mysterious with which we're all connected. And in this film, he gives one image of that that's kind of interesting. It's a beautiful image of a duck. He learned this from his mother, by the way, a duck floating on a lake. And you see the duck and you see the lake, and you see that the duck is resting, is floating in some kind of expanse that's more than the duck, but it supports the duck. And the ripples, the waves can be tumultuous. They can be smooth and gentle. Still, there's something that supports the duck. And that's the Buddha. The Buddha mind, the Buddha mind. So cooking is one way to find your Buddha mind, but accepting your frailty, your finitude, who you are, is another way, and they can go together. So those are some points from the film. Does that raise any thoughts for you or for us? We can start with a simple one. Do you have a practice that functions for you a little bit like meditation, even though it's not meditation? But when you do it, you're present, you're centered, you feel there or here. Anything? Joyce.
I make jewelry.
All right, that's it. That's it. Tell us just a little bit more.
When I do that, I'm engrossed in what I'm doing. I'm very present and focused, and it brings peace to my mind.
And the fingers count, don't they? I mean, the tactile dimension.
That's true. That's part of it, I think. Using the hands to weave and bring something into being.
Yeah, that's. Anybody else? What's your form of jewelry making? Sally.
I love to cook. I feel
right.
like I can create something from nothing. And it's a multi-sensory experience with the hot and the cold and the chopping and the stirring and the aromas. And it's also a connection with others. It's multicultural. And sharing food is a very, yeah, I love to cook. And now I'm growing some food. And so that even adds a new dimension.
Yes. Yeah. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. Anybody
else? It's calming to the mind. It's very relaxing because you're in the zone.
Yep. That's it. That's what this film is about, part of it. Anybody else?
Steve has his hand up.
Okay, Steve, sorry. Yes, Steve.
Jay, really, it reminded me of just a lot of things. And something that I just came across recently called the vegetable root discourses from China from 1368 to 1644. And there is a little quote in there that has just been so speaking to me, and everything that was being shared in that little clip, and even what you were sharing, reminds me of this quote. It says, "Soil that is dirty grows countless things.
Yeah.
Water that is too clear has no fish. Thus, as a mature person, we properly include and retain a measure of grime."
Oh, yeah.
In other words, as a mature person, we must embrace impurity and imperfection in ourselves and in our lives. And It goes on, reality is things as they are. If one is on the path to realize the truth, one cannot exclude the parts that are unsettling, unpleasant, or impure. And that's what I was hearing as you were sharing. It's just everything is sacred.
Yeah.
Everything belongs. And I think where I find that connection that you were talking about is working in my yard. It's working in my flower bed. And I think there's just something about having your hands busy. And back when I used to do a lot of teaching and training with children, I always said the only way to work with third grade boys, they have to have their hands busy while you're sharing with them, while you're talking with them, while you're interacting with them. And I think what I've realized over the years is we're all third grade boys. So it helps when our hands are busy.
I think that makes sense to everybody, Steve. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
Jay,
Yeah.
my husband's grandmother always, she had this saying that everybody has to eat a peck of dirt before they die.
Yeah.
And
A
so
peck of dirt?
a peck of dirt before they die. They have to accept who they are, and that
Yeah.
they have to get dirty. They have to get dirty.
I was very impressed and moved by the chefs looking for such a long time and pausing very carefully at the tea kettle. And the tea kettle was dented. It wasn't perfect, but I think he was glorifying its usefulness and its imperfection because it still worked. And I think he really had kind of held it in high esteem. He didn't want to get rid of it. And I thought that was good.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Tina, adding that, it was useful to him. So somehow its effectiveness included the dents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the human lesson there is actually when we come to accept the lines in our face a little more, a little better, actually the more effective we become. And the quest for perfection and comparing ourselves to others inhibits our capacity to be effective, to be useful. Well, that's really what I wanted to present to us today. I myself, at one point in my life, thought I might become a Zen monk. And so I actually went to Japan and stayed at a monastery. And it was very short-lived, although the Zen teacher there is my teacher. He's dead now, but I still learn from him every day. So I'm a Christian, and I'm a Christian influenced by Buddhism. There's somebody says, "What are you?" They need a label. I say, "Well, try this one. Try this one. I want to walk with Christ as Christ walked in love, and I'm really helped by Buddhism in the practice." But when I went to the monastery, I was in a slightly different place. I thought maybe I really will become a Zen monk. And I'd been meditating for a time. And I remember at the monastery, he took me to the kitchen. And he said, "Now, if you're going to live here, you know, we want you to be in the kitchen." And I saw the equipment and some vegetables, as I recall. And there was a carrot to be chopped. But in those days, you see, I was so concerned with philosophy and theology. I thought real Buddhism is, gosh, when we get to talk about the ideas and the teaching. So yeah, there's this cooking thing and the food thing, interesting. But can we just sit down for a little bit and talk about nirvana? And I realized that for him, there was no differentiation there. Actually, there was something preferable to chopping the carrots. That was closer to the real thing than having a philosophical discussion. I lived out in a little cabin in those days that they had, and the outhouse wasn't working. So my Zen teacher, he came out there with a saw in hand, and he started to fix the outhouse. I can see him sawing right now. And I was impressed with the physicality of it. There was nothing non-spiritual about that physicality. And also he noted, in Japan, we have a very famous Zen outhouse. It's a national monument. It's huge. It could take hundreds of people at one time. And I thought, that's a big outhouse. And he was kind of proud of it. He said, I hope you go see it while you're here in Japan. I said, okay, I will. But I still wanted to talk about nirvana. I was still kind of lost in my head. I still thought, but the real thing is when we get to sit down and talk about emptiness and shunyata and interconnectedness and all these great themes, mindfulness in the here and the now, when we get to talk about those things. And at one point he sensed my impatience, my desire to get to the teachings. And he said something to the effect of, let's talk more about the outhouse. Because I sense that for you, there's a sharp distinction between the sacred and the profane, the holy and the ordinary, the spiritual and the physical, the philosophical and the practical. He said, you need to wipe those away. All those distinctions you need to throw away. So one last story, and then I'll turn it over to Lewis. So he used to come to Conway every year and give lectures and lead a meditation retreat. And he would always create calligraphy. So you see this calligraphy, let's see if I can get it. So you see that calligraphy in the background there. He made that. He would give me calligraphy every time he came. He would do it on the spot. I don't remember what that one means, but I really remember one that he gave me one time. He'd get on the ground and he'd get that ink and he'd draw on that paper, and I'd say, all right, what's it mean? Because I can't read the Chinese or the Japanese. And he said, it means, hey, throw it away. That was it. Hey, throw it away. Sweep away those fragments in your mind that keep you from just being yourself. All right, that's our Zen story for the day. We'll move on. Next film. You're on, Lewis, I think.
Let me unmute myself here. So I really liked the documentary, and I have to agree with, I forgot who said it, the thoughtfulness that the speaker spoke about the teapot with. The movie I picked is, sorry, I'm also trying to facilitate this while I'm doing this, was Contact. And just by a show of hands, who has either read the book or seen the movie Contact? It came out in, oh, okay, so a good portion of people. It came out in 1997. It came out a year after I was born, actually, but my mom was a big fan of it, and so I watched it a lot when I was a kid and when I was a teenager. And if you don't know the story, it was actually a book that was written by Carl Sagan, and he actually died, I believe, during the development of the film. So I think it was like helping with the film, and then he passed away while it was still in development. But Contact is a story about a scientist who studies radio signals that come from deep space, looking for, any radio signals that are coming from planets, stars, anywhere like that, looking for intelligent life. And they end up finding a these scientists, the protagonist, she ends up finding this message from space that is just a series. At first, it just sounds like a series of flips that are recurring prime numbers, and then throughout the movie, these scientists end up discovering, okay, they're actually sending us a video back. They're sending us, schematics for this kind of like spaceship thing. And this huge debate kind of blows up around the scientists and around the country about, should we build this spaceship? Should we go up into space? There's a huge thing. There's like a terrorist attack on the spaceship. And in the end, if you guys don't mind spoilers, the protagonist, played by Jodie Foster, ends up, from what we can see, she ends up visiting this planet, this alien civilization. But when she comes back, she doesn't have any proof. So it seems to me very, and if you've seen the movie, it's kind of a very heavy-handed take on the like science versus spirituality like debate that was kind of happening in like the 80s and 90s. But I think with Carl Sagan, it has a really good message. So I'm actually going to play a clip from the end of the movie where Jodie Foster, who's the protagonist, and I forgot her name in the movie, is talking with to a government board on her experience in this spaceship that she doesn't really have any evidence that she went to outer space in. So I'm going to go ahead and play that now.
Doctor, are you familiar with the scientific precept known as Occam's razor?
Yes. It means that all things being equal, the simplest explanation tends to be the right one.
Exactly. Now, you tell me, what is more likely here? That a message from aliens results in a magical machine that whisks you away to the center of the galaxy to go windsurfing with dear old dad, and then a split second later returns you home without a single shred of proof? Or that your experience is the result of being the unwitting star in the farewell performance of one S.R. Haddon, a man with the means, the motive, and the opportunity to play you, and indeed the rest of us, as pawns in the biggest, the most elaborate, the most expensive hoax of all time.
Dr. Irway, you come to us with no evidence, no record, no artifacts, only a story that, to put it mildly, strains credibility. Over $500 billion was spent. Dozens of lives were lost. Are you really going to sit there and tell us we should just take this all on faith?
Please answer the question, Doctor.
Is it possible that it didn't happen? Yes. As a scientist, I must concede that. I must volunteer that.
Wait a minute, let me get this straight. You admit that you have absolutely no physical evidence to back up your story?
Yes.
You admit that you very well may have hallucinated this whole thing?
Yes.
You admit that if you were in our position, you would respond with exactly the same degree of incredulity and skepticism?
Yes.
Then why don't you simply withdraw your testimony and concede that this journey to the center of the galaxy, in fact, never took place?
Because I can't. I had an experience. I can't prove it. I can't even explain it. But everything that I know as a human being, everything that I am tells me that it was real. I was given something wonderful, something that changed me forever. A vision of the universe that tells us undeniably how tiny and insignificant and how rare and precious we all are. A vision that tells us that we belong to something that is greater than ourselves, that we are not, that none of us are alone. wish I could share that. I wish that everyone, if even for one moment, could feel that awe and humility and hope. But that continues to be my wish.
Friends would walk up to me and
Right. So that's the clip near the end of the movie. And I guess my questions for everyone for this film are, have you, like Jodie Foster, ever had an experience where you can't really just explain it and you can't really just, share it with anyone? It was just a personal experience that you can't explain. And because that's also a very personal question, I wanted to provide another question, which in this film, there's a lot of kind of debate between, would our spiritual lives be more fulfilling without technology? So I'm curious what you think. Would our spiritual lives be more fulfilling without social media, technology, things like that, especially coming off of our last discussion we had about, connecting via Zoom during the pandemic? So I will open that up and let Jay facilitate.
I'm still so moved by that scene, Lewis. That is really powerful. So let's take the first question first. Have you had an experience like Jodie Foster's, in that you wish that everybody could have it? It's very hard to put into words, and it may seem unbelievable to others.
I have. I've talked about it before, but when I was a young teenager, I guess about the age of 13, I was up at Petty Jean Mountain at Camp Mitchell, and we were participating in a Eucharist service. And my friend and I went down to the altar rail and knelt. And as the paten was put in the palms of my hand, behind me, I saw Ada Valley just totally light up. There was a huge arched glass window behind the altar, and the entire valley was lit just with this phenomenal bright white light. And I felt the light energy go from the top of my head down to my toes. And for hours afterwards, it was just very bizarre, but for hours afterward, I felt extremely euphoric and at one with everybody. It was just the most undeniably real, but hard to explain and hard to believe, I guess, for anyone else experience, except that my girlfriend had the identical experience. It was very, very moving. And the feelings of that euphoria finally left. But I mean, we were just, I don't know how else to say it, except that we felt totally at one with nature, with God, with people, with things organic, with things inorganic. It was just absolutely incredible. And I've never since had that. And I didn't ask for it. I mean, it was totally unexpected. And I remember when I was telling one of my sons when he was a lot younger, he said, "Mama, am I ever going to see the light?" I said, "I don't know, but if you do, you'll know about it." But it was just one of those things that it's probably once in a lifetime, but I would say with the same awe that Jodie Foster was describing her experience, that was really kind of indescribable.
Well, Tina, that experience is so dramatically interesting and important. Anybody else had something like that? We'll call it the Tina experience. We won't say mysticism, we'll say the Tina experience. Anybody had a Tina-like experience? or some other kind of experience. Can't put it into words, but you think it's really important. And you kind of wish you could share it with everybody.
Well, Jay, a few years back, I had a kidney stone that just absolutely would not pass. And I was in excruciating pain. I was in bed. I'd had it for a week. And as I was sitting there in bed, I was suddenly completely overwhelmed with gratitude. I mean, tears were falling from my eyes. I was overwhelmed with gratitude. I was thankful. And yet there was nothing about my circumstance that had changed. I was still in excruciating pain, but I just felt grateful. And during that experience, I found myself blessing the stone and speaking to the stone, not to rebuke it or get rid of it, but to tell the stone it was okay. And it was a part, and we were in this together. And, you know, once again, proof, absolutely none. Does it make sense? No, it's absolutely ridiculous and foolish. But I experienced that, and it's like it's never left me. It comes back to me over and over and over again. And once again, still in complete pain, but at the same time experiencing gratitude. And for a long time, I didn't want to tell anybody I was speaking to my kidney stone and telling it it was a part and it was blessed. So that's what comes to my mind as you were asking that.
Well, I'm watching the clock here. We have a little more time. Anybody have one more experience they'd like to share? Steve, thanks so much. I'm going to call it the Tina and Steve experience now. Anybody else?
What was the other question?
Well,
technology.
Before we leave that, could I ask a kind of follow-up? Has anyone known anybody that's had, or have you had, an abduction experience? There is a lot of material on that. People that have them don't know what to do with it. But just to say, it's probably worth taking a look at and not simply dismissing as a projection. It's probably worth taking a look at. And related to that, in the next 15 years or so, you're going to hear more and more about the therapeutic effects of psychedelic experiences. And so I'm a 60s guy, and I can remember the rise of that. I can remember the sad side of that. I can remember the whole of society kind of stuffing it away and making everything illegal, but things have really changed. And they're changing at Johns Hopkins, for example. And they're having conferences right and left in academic institutions about the therapeutic and spiritual use of psychedelics and different kinds of psychedelics. So just yesterday, I was at a gathering. Nita, you were there. Yeah. Well, that's what that was about. It was about psychedelic experiences, their therapeutic significance, their religious significance, and the like. So we're going to be hearing more and more about that. And I just want to take note of that. If anybody wants to jump in there, do so. If you don't want to, that's fine. Lewis is, yeah, Anita, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to
comment. I really love this movie. I don't have much to say about the psychedelics at this point, but I do have something to say about the movie and kind of, I've been blessed to have some really unusual and sort of euphoric and mystical experiences in my life, which we don't have time to discuss right now. But I will say that we just got back from a trip to New Mexico where we went out and visited the Big Array, which is a whole series of huge radio telescopes that look like the ones in the movie. And on the way, we stopped in Roswell. And of course, there's all the aliens there, the little green aliens. But my sister-in-law is an artist and had an exhibit in a gallery there in Magdalena called A Small Array. And so I went from this big array to this small array. And there in our courtyard outside the casita we were staying in was this really cool looking window. And I found some real mysticism because I kept thinking about what's out there. And that sense that Jodie Foster talked about of this awe and the humility and that sense of being a small part of something larger than yourself, that all was knit and woven together for me on that trip, and even more. And I love this movie for that reason. It speaks to that so brilliantly. So I don't know what's out there, but I'm glad I'm a part of it.
Nita, I think you're a duck in the ocean. I think that Lewis's second question was on technology and the role of technology and spirituality. Is that it, Lewis? How would you want to re-articulate it one time?
Yeah, I just in the movie, some of the characters express like, you know, with the advancement of technology, and I think we can apply this to like social media too nowadays. We might be losing part of our like spiritual selves by maybe distracting ourselves with technology. Do you think that's true, or do you think it brings us closer together? Because I mean, hey, we're hosting an interfaith class on Zoom. So where do you fall on that spectrum? Where do you think yeah, that was the question.
I get it. Who would like to respond to Lewis? I think it's the question of the spectrum. That was nice that you said the spectrum. So there's one end, the anti-technology folks, and the other end, it can solve all problems. Do you lean in one way or the other yourself? Put it that way.
Zoom is great for watching movie trailers. You couldn't do that in person.
I'm wondering if we come to Lewis's question from a different place, because I don't know a lot about technology and I don't actually care to learn. I'd rather call my kids and say, could you come over and do such and such? And you're in a generation, Lewis, where, well, I'm speaking for myself, but I see you as in a generation where you need to be part of technology because you're growing up with technology. So I don't know that I guess on a spectrum, I enjoyed this kind of technology and the simple things, but I'm okay with not really doing much else than what I'm already doing. So I don't know if that, so I don't know if that speaks to
Ellen,
that.
you just given us a new category, the techno-neutral.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Got to go either way. Anybody else? I want to remind us, all of us, that the telescope and the microscope were advances in technology. There was a time when they didn't exist. And the telescope widened our horizons of the cosmos. And the microscope showed us that the cosmos is smaller than we are. Universes in their own right. So those are two instances of probably technologies that have really expanded our capacities for consciousness.
Jay, I think about the big blue marble, the picture that the astronauts took. That's, I think, always been regarded as a very spiritual thing.
And we wouldn't have that image
That's correct.
without technology.
Or I think about Sunday night when I was so bummed out about the being cloudy and going to miss the red moon. And so I went on NASA and I watched it. And it was fabulous to get to do that. And again, a very spiritual experience.
Yeah. There's a famous eco-theologian. Her name is Sally McFaig.
Oh, yeah.
And she was interested in the notion of divine transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, but I think some of the biblical imagery doesn't work for us, for me. She was speaking for, the image of an external personified agent can't quite go there, she said. But she said, but when I think about the stars in the sky, in the galaxies, in the awe of that, I think that's a contemporary way of reclaiming transcendence.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
There's something more than us.
I agree.
And it's frightening and beautiful and inspiring and all kinds of things. So it's possible that new understandings of transcendence are brought about with help from technology. It's possible, and I don't know about this, Louis. We're a community, but I don't know that I've seen any of you face to face, except Louis and Sophia. But we're a community. And so what kinds of communities are made possible by technology is also interesting. Sophia?
Yeah, Jay, it's almost time to close. Well, thank you so much for bringing contact to us, Louis. For me, movies always have a power to heal, and I really enjoyed watching it again. And the movie reminded me that how insignificant we humans are, and yet so beautiful we are. And I am holding off on the other movie, the food documentary, to watch it with my family because food is very special for me. So I'm waiting to see it together. So thank you to both of you. Before we close, I really want to quickly make an announcement about our next session to all of you. So next Wednesday, we really have a special session, and I hope each one of you can join and bring more people with you. So instead of 2 movies, we will be doing 1 movie, and name of the film is Women of the White Buffalo. I hope you can see it on my screen. You can Google it, womenofthewhitebuffalo.com. It's an ancient native matriarchal society, which is Women of the White Buffalo. This movie actually talks about the lives of 9 women who have been living in this South Dakota region called Pine Ridge and Rosebud Indian Reservation. So the movie features the stories of these 9 women, and one of these 9 women, her name is Sunrose. Sunrose Iron Shell will be visiting with us next week. So Louis is going to send you the details of the movie. I hope you'll all watch it, and then we will visit with Sunrose in this 1 hour. She will share her own personal life with her. You can see her on the screen. Her full name is Sunrose Iron Shell. She is one of the 9 women who is featured in the movie. And after she shares her own life story with us, we will have an opportunity to ask question and answers. It's a new release. I hope you all will enjoy it. So that's our movie for next Wednesday. And with that, I leave you all to the next week with lots of love and light your way. Peace, salam, and shalom.
Thank you.